The Journey of Spiritual Awakening, a deep guide through the lens of Jung. If you're feeling lost, on the edge of something profound, or simply seeking clarity, this journey is for you. Comment the word awakening below to affirm your path and connect with others walking alongside you. 1. The sleep of the soul, unconsciousness as the beginning. What you do not bring to consciousness appears in your life as fate. Carl Jung. The first stage of spiritual awakening is often the most invisible to the one living it. It is the state of deep unconsciousness, total identification with the ego and with the defense mechanisms of the psyche. In this stage, the individual is at the mercy of automatic patterns, unresolved traumas, and inherited beliefs that operate as a silent programming. Jung teaches us that both the personal and collective unconscious govern our behaviors until we dare to illuminate these shadows with awareness. Unconsciousness expresses itself through recurring conflicts, repeated relationship patterns, emotional self-sabotage, and a profound sense of existential emptiness. We seek meaning outside of ourselves, in consumption, recognition, control over others. The world is perceived as something to fear or conquer. We live as victims or survivors. The ego, dominated by fear, tries to protect the identity constructed over years, even when that identity is a source of suffering. This is when the first glimmers of the self, the deep center of the psyche described by Jung, begin to emerge. Yet these signals rarely arrive as mystical revelations. They often appear as crises, a breakup, an illness, a financial collapse, a depression. These apparent collapses are actually invitations. The unconscious begins to push forgotten contents to the surface so that the being can initiate the process of individuation, the journey toward becoming who one truly is. In the sleep of the soul, pain is the greatest teacher. It tears the veil of illusion. Suffering is not punishment, but messenger. When the soul is ignored, the body and life cry out. Synchronicities, those meaningful coincidences Jung spoke of, begin to appear. A book falling into your lap, a phrase that touches your heart, a recurring dream. These are clues pointing to a deeper reality waiting to be lived. This stage, though dark, is fertile. It is the soil in which the seed of consciousness is planted. Nothing blossoms without first passing through the dark earth of unconsciousness. Jung said, we must descend into the depths to find gold. The dark night of the soul is the womb of awakening. The challenge is to resist rushing out of this phase. There is wisdom in waiting, healing in the dark, and transformation in the attentive listening to what has long been silenced. 2. The death of the ego, the collapse that reveals truth. You do not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Carl Jung. The death of the ego is not a mystical event reserved for monks or spiritual masters. It is a deep existential crisis that can occur in the midst of ordinary life. For many, it feels like an internal implosion. Nothing makes sense anymore. The old identity crumbles. What once provided safety, career, status, social roles, religion, becomes unsustainable. The soul cries out for truth. In this stage, the individual experiences a kind of void that defies explanation. It's as if everything that once defined their existence has lost its value. Jung described the ego as a small center of consciousness that believes itself to be the whole. But when confronted by the unconscious, the ego is forced to surrender. The ego does not vanish, but it ceases to be the commander. This collapse may bring physical, emotional, and spiritual symptoms: insomnia, mental confusion, anxiety, a sense of lost identity. But behind these signs lies something sacred, the birth of the observer, the silent witness within who no longer identifies with thoughts or emotions. It is like stepping off the stage and watching the play of your life from a wider perspective. Jung emphasized the shadow, all that we repress, as both obstacle and gateway. Facing the shadow means confronting the darkest parts of ourselves: envy, jealousy, rage, shame, guilt. But it also leads to integration. By embracing these parts, we become whole, not perfect, but real. The death of the ego is the rebirth of consciousness. We begin to discern essence from conditioning. Life is no longer something happening to us, but something we co-create. Spirituality becomes a living experience, not just a belief. This stage demands courage. It is the moment when we must let go of the old to create space for the new, even with no guarantees. Yet here, for the first time, we taste a freedom that no circumstance can give or take. The freedom to be. If you felt seen in any part of this journey, share this message and comment "Awakening Again" to mark the stage that speaks to your soul. 3. The search, the call for meaning and connection. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens. Carl Jung. After the disintegration of the ego, a sacred longing arises, not just for understanding, but for connection with the divine, with oneself, with something greater. This is not an intellectual curiosity. It's a deep, soul-driven urge to discover the essence of life and one's place in the cosmos. This third stage of awakening is known as the search, and it is marked by a sincere and relentless pursuit of truth. This phase may begin subtly, with a sudden interest in philosophy, psychology, spirituality, or the mysteries of existence. Books fall into your hands. Synchronicities increase. You begin to meditate, reflect, and turn inward. Jung described this as the path toward individuation, becoming the true self by integrating the unconscious into consciousness. During this stage, that process intensifies. The search takes many forms. Some explore different spiritual traditions. Others dive deep into inner work, shadow integration, journaling, therapy. Practices like mindfulness, breath work, and connecting with nature become daily tools. But unlike the earlier stages where external validation was sought, now the compass has turned inward. The voice of intuition grows louder. Silence becomes sacred. The questions change from "what should I do?" to "who am I?" Jung often emphasized that every journey inward is also a journey toward wholeness. In this search, you begin to see how every experience, even the painful ones, fits into the greater mosaic of your soul's evolution. You become aware of archetypes moving within you: the seeker, the healer, the child, the sage. Life becomes symbolic. Dreams carry messages. Reality begins to whisper. Yet this stage can also be lonely. The deeper you go, the less you can relate to the superficial. Old friendships may fall away. Shallow conversations feel hollow. But in this solitude, something sacred is born, a relationship with your own soul. And from this communion, a sense of peace emerges, not because everything is resolved, but because you're aligned with your truth. The search prepares the ground for something even more profound: the emergence of your most authentic self. 4. The rising of the authentic self, a return to essence. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Carl Jung. With the soul awakened and truth pursued, a new self begins to rise, not built from ambition, validation, or fear, but from essence. This is the emergence of the authentic self. It is not a mask, not a persona. It is the voice that has been buried beneath years of conditioning, trauma, and societal expectations. This stage is one of clarity. Suddenly, things that once seemed tolerable, toxic relationships, meaningless work, self-denying habits, become intolerable. There's a pull toward integrity. You can no longer betray yourself to please others. You start to speak your truth, even if your voice shakes. You walk away from what numbs and walk toward what ignites. Jung believed that the self is both the goal and the center of the psyche, the guiding force of transformation. In this stage, the self becomes more visible. Decisions are made not from fear, but from alignment. You begin to remember who you were before the world told you who to be. Often this authenticity echoes the qualities of childhood: creativity, spontaneity, vulnerability, wonder. There may be upheaval. You might leave jobs, move homes, end relationships, but rather than chaos, these changes feel like shedding, releasing what no longer fits. And though the path may feel uncertain, there's a new kind of trust, not in outcomes, but in your soul's compass. People may not understand your transformation. That's okay. This stage is not about being understood. It's about being whole. You become more sensitive to beauty, to suffering, to energy, and you begin to serve not out of obligation, but from overflow. You realize your presence is medicine. The authentic self does not seek to prove. It simply radiates, and in doing so, it illuminates the path for others. 5. Living in alignment, embodying the awakened soul. There is no coming to consciousness without pain. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. Carl Jung. After moving through the veils of unconsciousness, shedding the ego, earnestly seeking truth, and finally rediscovering one's essence, the individual enters a rare and profound state, living in alignment. This is not a state of constant bliss, nor a life without challenges. It is a state of deep congruence, where your inner truth, values, and soul expression are lived openly, honestly, and compassionately in the world. Living in alignment means showing up as your whole self. You no longer fragment to fit expectations or shrink to avoid judgment. You speak from your center, act from your integrity, and relate from your heart. In this space, the sacred infuses the ordinary. Washing dishes, walking in the park, or holding space for someone all become spiritual acts. For Jung, this is the embodiment of individuation, the full integration of the psyche, S parts, the conscious and unconscious, the light and shadow, into a meaningful, mature self. At this point, you no longer strive to become something, you simply are. You live as a soul, having a human experience, grounded, awake, and alive. Compassion becomes a natural way of being. You no longer need others to change for you to feel peace. You recognize each person is on their own sacred journey. You see with eyes of understanding, and you forgive not to forget, but to free yourself from old contracts of pain. You become the nurturing presence you once longed to receive. Purpose takes a new shape. It's not about achievement, status, or recognition. Purpose is presence. It is being available to the moment, attuned to your inner rhythm, aligned with love. Whether you are guiding others, creating art, tending to a garden, or listening deeply, you are fulfilling your soul's role. In this state, your life becomes prayer. Your presence becomes healing. You embody your essence so fully that you invite others to do the same. You are no longer seeking light, you are the light. This is not the end of the journey, but the beginning of a life lived awake. Here, growth continues, but from a foundation of wholeness. You embrace mystery, walk with grace, and rest in the knowing that your being is enough. If this message resonated with your soul, share it with someone who needs it, and comment the word awakening one final time to honor the beauty and courage of your own sacred path. You are not alone. You are not broken. You are awakening. And the world needs the truth of who you are.